Well, if that one was any indication, the second half is probably going to be a bit nuts. Welcome on in. You have found the Outlap F1 podcast. This is season 7, episode number 29. Let me fix that. It's our 2025 Dutch GP review show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight. And just a little bit while ago, we finished watching the Dutch GP. As you can see, kind of the mood lighting. It's probably going to transition from, early evening to sunset, and then you're probably going to get used to the normal image here. But you've got Andy. I'm along with Cody. Cody, how goes it on this lovely golden Sunday here in the Chicago area?
Yeah, we couldn't have picked a better time for Labor Day weekend. It's fantastic out. Yesterday, Andy and I, along with some other friends, we got out and played a nice round of golf. Today I got working in the yard. It's been nice and productive and a great time.
Yeah, well, very good. Well, if you have found our show, like I always say, welcome along. You can find us on all the different platforms: Blue Sky, on X, on Discord, sometimes on Reddit, but always here on YouTube. At Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. If you enjoy what you're hearing and you like what you're seeing, if you want to click the like or the subscribe button, if you're on YouTube, but also if you're on your favorite podcasting app, if you want to drop a 5-star review, that will help our content come up a little bit better in F1 related search results, and we would be most appreciative if you'd like to do that. You can always email the show, outlapf1@gmail.com. We'll get your comments to us. Thank you so much for the continued support of our Outlap F1 Nation, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of that hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, get a shout out at the beginning of each episode and some other interactions with us. You can do so. There's a link in our Anchor page. It does ask for a small little monetary donation. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but $1, $5. What does that help us do? It helps us keep our technology relevant, keeps our recording platform up and updated, and all of that other good stuff. Well, all right. Particulars out of the way. Let's just say our prediction abilities were a little off going into this one, but we will start with our headlines of the day. Cody, I'll let you go first. What you got?
Funny that you mentioned our predictions, because my headline of the day is Andy and I cannot predict jack shit. If you listen to our preview show, you'll know that we both predicted Lando Norris to have a banger of a weekend and knock it out of the park and all those big things. And he got no pole, no win. In fact, he didn't even get any points. Now, all that said, it really wasn't his fault, but we will get into that shortly.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those, this is one of those great equalizer days. It makes you kind of humble as a follower of the sport. You think you know, you don't know. It just kind of proves itself over and over again. So my headline of the day is: some days you win, some days you lose, some days it rains, and some days shit happens. And I think that pretty much describes a few fortunes here today. There were some winners. There were some people who lost a little bit bigger. It did rain a little bit in Zandvoort, but it didn't end up proving to be material. But the big story, obviously, Lando Norris retires late on in the race, and that hands Oscar Piastri, his teammate, who converted to the race win, a much bigger lead in the Drivers' Championship. Takes a little bit of air out of the championship fight, but as we're going to probably talk about when we get into things a little bit, nothing is over until it's over. This sport, we've seen bigger margins than this get reversed, and just remember back to last year when everyone was saying, oh yeah, the 70 points, that's comebackable. Lando's got half of that to go. So all is not lost, Lando Nation. It's okay. I've seen a lot of doomsday saying stuff happens. It's all right. But anyway, we're going to get into all that in just a little bit. And we shall start, as we are always apt to do, with our qualifying recap. And let's see, I do have the sound queued up. All right, so that saw... All right, going out in P20, he did not set a lap. Had an ugly part to the first part of the weekend, but it would get better for him. That would be Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. P19 was Oliver Behrman in the Haas. P18, Esteban Ocon in the other Haas. P17 was Nico Hulkenberg in the Kick Sauber. P16 was Franco Colapinto in the Alpine. Going through to Q2, but going no further. P15 saw Alex Albon. P14 was Pierre Gasly. P13 was Gabby Bortoletto. P12 was Yuki Tsunoda. And P11, missing out on the top 10 shootout, was Kimi Antonelli. The top 10 from 10 to 1. P10 was Fernando Alonso. P9, Carlos Sainz for Williams. A good showing here. P8 was Liam Lawson. P7, Lewis Hamilton. P6 was Charles Leclerc. P5 was George Russell. P4, one of the stars of qualifying and probably one of the stars of the weekend, as it turns out, Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bull. P3 was Max Verstappen. And P2 and P1, the two McLarens out in front. Not a lot in it. 12 thousandths of a second separates P2, Lando Norris, from P1, Oscar Piastri. That was really close. Wow. All right. Cody, big thoughts here in the qualifying.
Biggest thing for me was that we did at least get one thing right during our preview show, and that was a prediction that McLaren would be pretty well out in front. That definitely showed here in qualifying, with both the McLarens extremely close to each other, but both of them about a quarter second out in front of Max Verstappen in third. So they were showing very strong right from the first competitive session. Really from practice, I believe Lando Norris led pretty much timing in most of the practice sessions. So yeah, they were well out in front, but they were very, very competitive with each other this weekend in qualifying. It looked like Lando maybe had it on, and really they both had fantastic laps. There really wasn't much in it. When you come down to the difference of 12 thousandths of a second, I can barely say thousandths. When it comes down to that small of a margin, there's not even really like driver mistakes that cause that difference in time or anything. They both put in fantastic laps. It was just such tiny margins between the two of them. They could have been the wind blowing the wrong way, as you told me Lando may have revealed in an interview that he had some headwind against his car in his time. That could have made all the difference. But yeah, they were definitely well out in front of everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, as it turned out, the first lap of Q3 was the definitive lap, because neither Lando nor Oscar could improve on their second runs. But as Lando speculated, he was up through the first two sectors, and I think that was proven to be true. It all came down to sector 3, and according to Lando, it was a puff of a wind gust that turned into a headwind that normally would help the car and help with downforce, but not to be when you're trying to go flat out and get to the line, which was what he was trying to do there. So, yeah, very ridiculously tight. I mean, there was nothing in it. I honestly, I went back and looked at both laps. I could not see either driver making a mistake. Those cars looked incredibly hooked up. And in terms of just comparison to the rest of the field, way out in front. Kudos, however, I think you got to give it to Max Verstappen for dragging that car. There he did it again into Q3 and being basically really the best of the rest. And he had a bit of a gap between himself and the rest of the field there, because the P4 is Hadjar and the other Racing Bulls. Hello there, how you doing? The argument could be, what would happen if you put Max Verstappen in a Racing Bull car just to see what would happen? Could he get something else out of it? But just a very, very tight qualifying. We kind of knew what was going to happen. On the other side of the coin, tough day for Lance Stroll. He had his car fixed after FP2 on Friday, only to then wreck it again in the first qualifying session on Saturday. So certainly not the best start to the weekend. Also not the best start to the weekend for the two Haas drivers. No Kick Sauber magic, no magical Q3 appearance for either Hulkenberg or Bortoletto here. And Kimi Antonelli kind of continuing the struggle a little bit. His rookie season has kind of turned around for the not so good. And when we get to the race, we'll definitely talk about some other stuff that he was involved in. But other shout outs, good performances, I think, from Liam Lawson, from Carlos Sainz and Williams, who, all of a sudden showed up and on a track that you wouldn't think would suit them. They're usually the straight line speed car. This is a very tight, twisty circuit, but good showing for both Williams as well. Albon, not so much for Albon. Albon was a little bit upset. Albon thought he could have done a lot better, had a big radio message about his team not setting him up to get the right tire life. and P15 was all he could accomplish there. He only improved from his Q1 time by a sole tenth of a second. So usually that's where you see the big jumps from Q1 to Q2. So definitely a very tight qualifying. But again, the main theme here, the two McLarens out in front, at least to start. All right, so we will turn the page and we will go to the Sunday race. And I know normally we usually start with the back markers, but if we kind of do that, we pretty much tell you the whole story. So we'll just kind of start with what I would like to consider kind of the main event. We'll start with the race start. Both McLarens were kind of pointed at each other. I think Oscar got a very good start, covers Lando off, and Max Verstappen decided to come to play. The first time you noticed it was, there he is on a set of soft tires. So he was obviously gunning for the race start and pulled off a move that I don't know how many others in this field really could have pulled off, because he tried to hang it out on the outside, gets around Lando. Lando fights him off, but when they get to turn 3, Max goes very low, and he went very, very low into that banked corner. I thought he was going to lose it. I saw from Lando's onboard him get sideways, but yet he finds it, gets the grip, and manages to pull the move off on Lando to get up into P2. Cody, you must have been a very happy bunny at that minute.
Yes, I was on the edge of my seat during that whole sequence. I was very excited that he was going on soft because, it lends to the fact that he's like, okay, I'm going to try to put on a show here for my home fans. I'm going to try my damnedest to get to the front if I can, even if it only lasts a little while, because those softs go pretty quick. But yeah, that move that he made, sticking it around the outside of Lando, and then the big wobble going into the big banked turn. Yeah, I was on the edge of my seat thinking, oh my God, he's going to wipe it out right here. But
I think he's going to take half the field out. I mean, if that car loses it, one, he for sure takes Lando out. There's no doubt about that. But then how many others get stacked up behind that?
Yeah, he lost the grip being that far off the racing line because it was seemingly very dusty. Yeah. But I think he was saved by the fact that there was so much banking in that turn because, he lost it and he was very much at the bottom of the track going into that turn. But there's so much banking there. I think it helped him to slow down the car and get it back on track. And it gave him the opportunity to pretty much like cut off the racing line by shooting up like that. So he manages to stay in front of Lando for a little while, which was exciting. And, a few laps later, Lando ends up making a pretty nice pass himself around the outside of Max to take that position back and put McLaren back into the 1-2. And then for a little while there, Lando seemed like he was starting to catch up to Piastri until Piastri decided that it was time to use the tires a little bit more, and then it started to even out. But that was most of the excitement from the beginning there.
Yeah.
Are you wanting to pretty much go through this now as just like the race chronologically? Probably for the best this time out.
Yep, I agree. Well, okay, so we kind of get into that was kind of the running order. Lando gets back beyond Max, I think around lap 14, lap 15 or something like that. And then we're kind of in that kind of order until we get to around, lap 18, lap 19, right around the time we would expect certain cars to be coming into the pits anyway. And we get our first safety car. Can't really remember who caused it.
I think that was Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, that was the Hamilton one. Okay, so the bad day that was for Ferrari kicked off with Lewis Hamilton basically getting himself on the outside of that turn 3, which proved to be a very pivotal corner in this race, and got into the painted area, and basically kind of the back end kind of spun on him, and he kind of wrecked himself. He was not having he was having an okay day, but his day went from bad to worse. Not only did he wreck himself out of the car, so he gets the dreaded DNF. Then he brings out the safety car, and then we found out after the race, he's got a 5-place grid drop going into Monza, a Ferrari driver with a penalty going into Monza, because apparently on the recon laps, as the drivers are coming to the grid before, about 45 minutes before the race starts, they threw double yellow flags right at the end of the lap. And it was shown by the data that Lewis, I guess, had crossed that zone and was going a bit too fast for the stewards' liking. So they were not happy with him. And now he's got to serve a 5-place grid drop for Monza. So the day that looked bad at kind of even as it was, now got a whole lot worse after that. But Cody, what's your thought?
Some slightly different topic, but I think it pertains to this part of the race, is that we were teased rain throughout this entire race. We got through like the first few laps, and the engineers were coming over the radio saying, "Oh, we're expecting some light rain coming by like I forget what they said, like lap 14 or something like that.
Right.
We're expecting some rain to come. We think it's going to come and last like 10 laps." And of course, we're all getting excited about that. Drivers start talking about seeing a few drops of rain on their visors, and you think, okay, like it's going to get mixed up here, and then nothing happened. Rain pretty much proved to be absolutely nothing. I think the only time where there were really drops falling was right around that time when Hamilton had his off, but everyone who pitted for dry tires, which was, no one tried anything crazy at that point and thought, oh, maybe it's going to start raining enough here for inners. And that was pretty much it as far as the rain concern went at that point. It never really got going, so that was a little disappointing for me because I figured that was the best hope for Max Verstappen getting some kind of magic win, but it was not to be.
Well, and it wasn't. It forced all of the potential strategy options that we had kind of talked about, via Hungary, where it's like the McLaren engineers have carte blanche to call their own strategies once the race starts. That pretty much all went out the window because there was a safety car. Of course, you're going to come in right in the middle of your window for the safety car. Now, so that caused the McLaren double stack. The first stop was a little bit more interesting than the second one. The first one, Lando kind of took out his jackman, and luckily he was, everybody was okay. The stop was able to get done, and both, McLaren drivers came out in the same one too that they went in. But it's just proving that, these guys are both pushing. They were both pushing each other, and the lap time suggested that they were at one point, I think it was almost like a second clear of anybody else in terms of race pace. So, they were building a gap, and then we would have a safety car, and then, we had the Hamilton safety car, and then the Leclerc safety car. And then, as we got, later on into the race, it got more interesting because all of a sudden now you're seeing Max Verstappen and everybody else on a set of soft tires and the two McLarens on hard tires. And it wasn't enough to get necessarily a pace advantage out of it. But as it turned out, none of that ended up really mattering in the end because the final safety car, lap 64 of the race, Lando Norris comes on his radio that says one of the things you never want to hear as an engineer: I smell smoke. This doesn't feel right. And I looked over at the timing and I'm watching the name drop. And that was pretty much fatal. There was no warning. There was nothing that happened before that. His car sounded fine. I had the whole radio up, the whole race he was there. Car just went boom. Engines do this. Apparently, according to the race.com, the latest update that we have, and this is maybe about only an hour ago, from Andrea Stella, we've identified an issue on the chassis side since Stella, after Lando's Zandvoort DNF, saying McLaren will do a, quote, full review, and it is the, quote, first technical problem for the team after a long run of faultless reliability. Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things that just kind of sucks if you're a Lando fan because they had done all the hard stuff. They had gotten through the pit stops. They had gotten several safety car restarts with Max Verstappen chomping at the bit, ready to go, and had fought all of them off, and it just was not to be for Lando. But that doesn't gift the win to Oscar Piastri because Oscar went out and earned it, and I didn't necessarily think Lando was going to, unless Oscar had a problem, I didn't see Lando getting there in the end, despite the fact that they were both on some extreme pace there at the end. But yeah, I mean, Oscar went out and gets the win, so he gets the 25 points. Lando gets nothing. Championship battle balloons out from the 9 points that we went into this race to now 34. So a bit work for Lando to do. But the good news is he can turn around and forget about this one, and he's going racing in 3 or 4 days. But Cody, what's your thought on all of that?
It's certainly bad luck for Lando Norris. Now, like you said, it looked like pretty much the entire day that Oscar was going to be taking the win here. They've been pretty much trading first and second for a bunch of races now. But it's really just bad luck for Lando. I've seen statistics being thrown around here that the last time that McLaren had a reliability-related retirement was like 5 years ago for Lando or something like that.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's just his luck that you have that string
I'm wondering if that's it's Bloke and Spa Francorchamps one. It might be that one.
It very well could be,
Yeah.
and that was a while ago.
Right, that would be about 5 years ago.
It's just bad luck then that, of course, he gets his next reliability retirement in the midst of a very tight championship fight where he's actually, on to potentially win. So now, his luck could very easily go his way. We were talking about how, a lot of people are thinking, oh, is this it for the championship? I've seen posts from other, big YouTubers like The Race and stuff like that being like, is this the end of the championship? It's like, no. He had one retirement. They were 9 points apart before this.
There's still 8 races. There's 9 races left. There's 180 plus points on offer yet. Lots to be decided.
Something could happen with Oscar. Right. Lando takes the win. Like there's still plenty of time for fortunes to change, but it does definitely make things a bit more difficult for Lando. Going back a little bit, we did see some other interesting debacles on track during a green flag pit sequence. Antonelli, who was actually doing quite well considering that he didn't make it to Q3, he took his pit stop for new tires. The following lap, Charles Leclerc pits for tires and comes out pretty much right in front of Antonelli, and Antonelli's got the tires that are heated up, better grip. He tries a move that wasn't really going to be going against Charles Leclerc. And
ambitious is calling it light, I think. But, it was interesting. Kimi Antonelli actually became the linchpin for suddenly bringing in the two-stop, because the more consensus, at least what you thought you were hearing from a lot of the team radios, was, especially after that, we had the Hamilton safety car right in the middle of the pit window, was that, everyone was just going to, go on their hard tires and kind of go to the end or as far as they could. Antonelli said, no, there's a gap here. I'm going to come in and put a set of soft tires on. Well, that triggers Charles Leclerc, who he was chasing, to then drop in and put a set of soft tires on. And then, here we go. Now it's on. And Antonelli really didn't handle the transition to the soft tires very well. Let's put it that way. It was a very ambitious move, and it ends up taking Charles Leclerc out. Ironically enough, here we are again, the turn 3. That's where most of the action seemed to happen here. And we get another safety car from Leclerc this time, and then Antonelli gets a puncture, gets back to the pits, picks up a 10-second penalty for the collision. That was totally deserved. And then he sped down the pit lane, so he gets another 5-second penalty. So he was just accruing all sorts of fun time things, and that puts him back at the end of the race with, of course, the final safety car bunching up the field. That was a nightmare scenario for him, because Antonelli goes from, I think, 7th on the road, and I think with all the penalties, he drops to P16. So that was he's actually the second from last of the finish of the drivers who finished. So a rough day and a bit of schooling for the young rookie there.
Yeah, certainly something of a rookie mistake there. One other incident that happened on track that led to some criticism of the FIA, haven't seen that before, following the incident was an on-track collision between Carlos Sainz and Liam Lawson, where Carlos Sainz was trying to make a pass on Liam Lawson around the outside. Was probably up about halfway alongside Liam Lawson, and you couldn't really tell from the cameras if maybe Lawson was just trying to kind of run him out of space a little bit, or if he lost grip there for just a brief moment. But they had a very slight touch. Of course, we've discussed before how even light touches can make all the difference if you hit right in the right spot. Right. And this was one of those times, light collision, but it happened to give both of them a puncture. And Carlos Sainz was quite livid already on the radio about how Liam Lawson was a moron, and that this keeps happening with Lawson and all of that. And then the team comes over to the radio and says, yeah, you've been given a 10-second penalty for the collision. And he's like, what? Who? Yeah, you.
Who, me?
Yeah, Carlos loses his shit all over again. Pretty much says like, I gotta go let me go talk to the FIA after this.
And he tried, and they locked the door on him and wouldn't come out. Was basically what he said in the post race. And as of right now, I don't know that discussion has been had with the stewards as to why exactly Carlos got it. Carlos was actually being pretty calm about it in the post race, where he's like, yeah, the FIA, they say we've got this open door policy. I just want to talk to them. Like, I'm not even going to yell at this point. It's not worth it. Like, it is what it is. I just want to know, like, if there's a next time, what am I supposed to do? I've read the steward's decision, and I don't know what they were looking at, because apparently they thought it was one of these apex corner situations, and that really wasn't what happened. It was just Lawson just kind of faded into Carlos's line, and they touched. He wasn't even trying necessarily an overtake. It was just, it's a racing incident. It's just, shit happens. I keep coming back to that theme here, and it's not worthy of a 10-second penalty, and it's certainly not worthy of 2 penalty points on his license. Like, come on, guys.
That was the most egregious part of it all.
I couldn't believe it.
Not only did he get a time penalty for this, he got penalty points on his license.
And so he's got every right to be, like, upset about it. Like, and he was just upset that the contact even happened. It wasn't like this is not a dive bomb move. I've seen dive bomb moves. That wasn't it. And the stewards were thinking, well, he wasn't ahead at the apex of the corner, so therefore Lawson had every right to fade into Carlos's line. And it's like, yeah, but there's a difference between in a lab and actual. And if you just watch what happened, that's not what Carlos was going for. It wasn't an overly ambitious type of move. So, yeah, the stewards got to take the L on this one. I don't know what they were seeing.
Yeah, and he says that he just wanted to go talk to them after the race. Something tells me, though, they locked the door because they were worried about, punches flying.
Well, let's hope. I mean, I don't want to see... A steward or whoever it is should never be threatened with violence or anything like that.
That was a joke. But
still, like, in today's world, you never know. People take shit way out of context. But I mean, my point is, they should at least talk to him about it. I mean, the decision's already done. It's over with. He served the penalty. It's done. You might as well defend it as best you can.
Yeah, maybe they didn't want to talk about it because they didn't know how to defend it at that point.
Well, that's why I wanted to read. I'm like, I got to read this thing. I don't like to read a lot of that stuff, but that was one where I'm like, wow, you're clearly just not seeing it for what it is. But anyway, again, reason number 86 why I'm not going to ever want that job.
Now, something that came out of all these retirements, especially finally the Lando retirement that we haven't talked about yet, is how this benefited Isaac Hadjar, who takes his first podium in his rookie season for Racing Bulls. So that was fantastic.
And he had himself a weekend, man.
Yeah, I was just going to say it was pretty much well deserved, because it's not like he stumbled into this through pure luck. He qualified fourth, was holding on to fourth place, was holding off, other would-be positions. He was holding off Leclerc and such on the road, doing a fantastic job. And then the only thing that he lucked into was the podium itself when Lando retired. But yeah, all in all, very well-deserved, fantastic finish for Isaac Hadjar. It was great to see how excited he was after all this. I did see a picture that he apparently broke his trophy.
Yeah, I know. He got so excited that he kind of, like, the trophy, like, here, it didn't look as fragile as, like, the Hungaroring, vase that they always give the winner of that race, but this thing was like a giant cup, and the cup had a very, very thin spine, and I think Hadjar squeezed a little too tightly. He went to go do the yeah in the team photo, and he did the yeah, and the top of the trophy went with him, and the bottom stayed right where it was. And it's one of those, he almost didn't realize his own strength type of thing. But yeah, great weekend for him. Obviously now the speculation is he going to be the Mac's new teammate? You see shots of Helmut Marko looking interesting. It's not going to happen this year. They're not going to do this at the end of the year. Yeah, exactly. It's like, do you really want to go into that seat? But just I think overall, his we've seen like the different rookies, they all kind of pop up in different moments. Like Antonelli had the really good performances early, and now you're seeing Hadjar. And oh yeah, we haven't even talked about Ali Behrman. P6 for Haas is a big deal for that team. When we get to the standings, P5 to P9 is like 16 points. So yeah, it might not be on for like P1 in the constructors, but the constructors battle coming into the rest of these 9 races is going to be fascinating because and where these different teams do better in different races and all that stuff, it's all over the place. So yeah, all to play for sure. Congrats to Haas, congrats to Ali Behrman, congrats to Isaac Hadjar on your maiden podium. That was well earned, son. Woo! All right. So I guess we'll just kind of run through the standings. Now we can actually talk about those back markers. Obviously, the day of pain for the Ferraris. Lewis Hamilton gets the first DNF. Charles Leclerc, the second DNF. Lando Norris doesn't actually get a DNF because apparently he had completed enough of the race distance. According to it, like he's plus 8 laps to the leader. So there's going to be one of those, well, this doesn't really count as a DNF. It was a DNF. Trust me, he did not finish the race. P17, the first non-retirement finisher on the road, or the last non-retirement finisher on the road, I should say. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. P16 was Antonelli with the penalties. P15 was Gabby Bortoleto. P14 was Nico Hulkenberg, and P13 we talked about Carlos Sainz and his trials and tribulations with the stewards there. That was Carlos Sainz. Any other big notes here in the back marker stuff? I think we kind of covered most of it.
Now we pretty much covered just about everything there. Obviously, no magic for Kick Sauber this time out. It is kind of interesting to see how the midfield performers kind of ebb and flow depending on the track we go to. Some weekends Kick Sauber looks really good. Some weekends like this, Racing Bulls looks really good. Yep. And then you got a split between Aston Martin where sometimes they've looked like one of the worst teams on the track, and then this time they somehow both end up in the points. So it's been wild, the ride that these teams
it was a roller coaster ride for Aston Martin just this weekend because they were the darling of Friday. They were P2 on qualifying pace, or at least on the qualifying simulations that were ran. So everyone was all hyped up there. And then they get to qualifying, and all Fernando Alonso could do was P10. So that was a bit of a damper on it. Lance Stroll wrecks twice. But here we get to the race, and they're P8 and P7 respectively. So, they score some good points when they definitely needed to. So, just to kind of recap your midfield finishers, P12 turns out to be Liam Lawson. P11, just missing out on the points, was Franco Colapinto. This does turn into a double point weekend for Haas. P10, Esteban Ocon, and P6, Ali Behrman, as we talked about. But P9 was Yuki Tsunoda. Double Red Bull points. Interesting there. P8 and P7, Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll. P6, Ali Behrman. P5, Carlos Sainz's pain turned into Alex Albon's gain. So the Williams flipping fortunes. Like, there's another team that had, you talk about riding the roller coaster. One guy's up, one guy's down, and then you get to the race and it's totally flipped on its end. So lots of drivers were going for it on a track that you didn't necessarily think you were going to overtake. Lots of incidents, just enough rain to make it interesting, but not enough to really affect anything. Pretty entertaining race, I would say, overall. I'm a little bit disappointed for the result personally, but other than that, I'm okay.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty exciting race. I guess if we're going to just wrap up the drivers real quick, fourth was George Russell, third was Isaac Hadjar, second was Max Verstappen, and first, of course, was Oscar Piastri. I was quite happy with Max being on pace the entire race for a podium. It's been kind of looking hairy for a while how many podiums he's going to get through the rest of the season, and if he's going to even get any more race wins. But we both went into this weekend thinking that it was not going to be a really good outing for Red Bull, even though Max Verstappen has performed very well at this track since its reintroduction to the calendar. And this time out, he was on track for third the entire day, got fortunate and got second out of it. So I think that means that Max still maintains his record since this race has been introduced of finishing first or second in every Grand Prix, which is quite impressive, and I'm sure very very pleasing for his home fans.
Oh yeah, I mean you almost don't remember most of his day, but I mean he had stretches where some of the when he was on a soft tire run, you could definitely tell the soft tires were giving up, and that was kind of where they were not showing particularly well. But aptly timed safety cars kept bringing him right back into it, where it was like, by the end, I was actually a little worried. Like, okay, Lando has the failure. If Oscar has the same failure, Max is right there and could have easily pounced. And I like the fact that they went aggressive early on the soft tires, which is like, if you're going to make your hay on a track that's usually tough to overtake, you might as well try to make your hay there. And he pulled off, like I said, that amazing move, on the first lap. And then they stayed aggressive. They didn't come off of that, which was, if you're going to do that, you might as well stay that. So when everybody went to the hard tire, he went to the mediums. And then again, he comes back with a set of softs. Now, he didn't like the last set of softs because I think they were used and not new. But, had they had maybe one extra set of, fresh soft tires, that would have been a very interesting race strategy that could have pulled off there for Max Verstappen. So, the margins, not much. And this was the closest he's been, 1.2 seconds right at the end there. So, definitely a much better showing. And I think he's going now to tracks that are going to suit that car better. Monza should suit that car better. And so does Azerbaijan. He loves the Baku City circuit, and it's always shown very well there. So I do think we're still not done talking about Max Verstappen this season for sure.
Now it is going to be really interesting to see them take the wings off the car for qualifying there, though.
Are they going to take the forceps out and do the cut where it's already low and we're just going to take more off? Like we did, give it a haircut. Yeah, we will have to see if that happens yet again. But all right, that will pretty much wrap up our recap of the Dutch GP. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll re-rack. We will take a look at what this did do to the driver and constructor standings. Certain fortunes fell a little bit. Other fortunes rose. We'll tell you about all that. We will then get into our fan emails. We've got some good contributors here. We'll hand out some awards, and then we'll talk about predictions. I almost thought this was going to be a draw. I thought we were actually going to get a draw, but there is a winner.
Not even a good draw.
No,
very bad.
It would have been the ones we set up. Like, somebody's going to get a lap time, and somebody's going to get the race lap time. Somebody's going to get the quality lap time, somebody's going to get the race lap time. That's about all we got. But we will recap the ugliness there, and we'll set up Monza in just a little bit. So come on back. You won't want to miss it. All right, everybody. Welcome back in. This is season 7, episode number 29 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Dutch GP review. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. As you can see, we have now fixed the mood lighting, and now we are back to normal standard lighting because the sun has gone away. But anyway, we just wrapped up talking about the Dutch GP and what was a very entertaining but maybe very title deciding race. We'll have to see. Long way to go yet. We still got 9 rounds to go, so plenty of things on offer for the rest of the season. But we're going to take a look at what this did to the drivers and the constructors championships. So Cody, as always, if you take the drivers, I will take the teams.
In first place in the driver standings, we still have Oscar Piastri with McLaren after a very successful weekend. In fact, so successful that this was Oscar Piastri's first Grand Chelem.
Yep.
So awesome there. Led every lap. I got the pole, the fastest lap, and the win. And while I was double checking this fact, I found out this is actually the first Grand Chelem for a McLaren driver since Mika Hakkinen in 1998.
Wow.
Monaco Grand Prix. So it's been a while. So kudos to Oscar for that one. He's sitting in first at 309 points, which is a much larger margin now to second place Lando Norris and the other McLaren at 275 points after his unfortunate retirement from second place. Max Verstappen ends up inheriting second place in the race. He's still in third place for Red Bull Racing at 205 points. So pretty much an insurmountable gap between him and Oscar Piastri at this point, but he is doing the best he can. Fourth place George Russell, who also snuck into a a very quiet success for himself. I think he finished, fourth place? We didn't even really talk about him. George Russell just kind of seems to do that. But he is also in
Hi,
fourth place.
remember me? I'm here.
Yep, I'm here, and I got some pretty good points. George is sitting in fourth place in the first of the Mercedes drivers at 184 points. Fifth place, Charles Leclerc, unfortunate. The second Ferrari retirement from this race. He's in fifth place at 151 points. And sixth place, his teammate, the other unfortunate Ferrari retirement from this race, Lewis Hamilton, at 109 points. Seventh place is Kimi Antonelli with his own headaches from this race for Mercedes at 64 points. Tied now on points with eighth place, Alexander Albon and Williams. When did you think we were going to see a tie on points between a Mercedes driver and a Williams driver? So Alex Albon in eighth place due to tiebreaker. He is also at 64 points. And then another tie on points between ninth and 10th place, Nico Hulkenberg in ninth place for Kick Sauber at 37 points. And now tied with him, but in 10th due to count back, is Isaac Hadjar. Coming off of his excellent podium race this time out. 10th place for Racing Bulls, also at 37 points.
Yeah, you would have thought Nico Hulkenberg would own any tiebreaker against everybody behind him. Not so much anymore. Now it's even more on countback. So yeah, the top 10, other than P1 and P2, is getting close across the board here. So lots going to possibly change before the end of the season. And the constructors, well, we know who's probably going to win that. It's just a question of when they clinch. I was joking with one of our followers earlier. I'm like, well, maybe it means because they didn't get maximum points. They almost could have ended the constructors at maybe even the next round. The consensus is they're probably going to clinch in Singapore. I actually hope they clinch in Coda, just so that maybe we can find the after party.
Oh man, that would be pretty cool. Yeah,
that would be pretty amazing if we could do that. But we'll have to see. But McLaren, Mercedes are way out in front. They are up still to 584 points despite Lando's retirement today. Ferrari, they scored no points on the day. Both drivers DNFing as well. So they remain on 260. Now back hot on their heels yet again. Mercedes in P3 up to 248 points. P4 is Red Bull. They are up to 214 with some good results today. P5 is Williams. They're up to 80 points. And from P5 to P9 it looks like a lot. Well, P6 to P9 is even more fascinating. I think it's a difference of 18 points. P6, Aston Martin up to 62 points, and they needed every bit of it because P7 Racing Bulls are up to 60 points. P8 Kick Sauber, they've had some great form in the last little while. They remain on 51 points. But P9, Haas had a great day, and it did not move them up a single spot in the constructors. That just goes to show how tight this is. They are back into the P6 fight. They are up to 44 points. And P10, almost a point for Franco Colapinto, but not to be. Alpine remain on 20 points. All right, so you have heard our takes on the Dutch GP. It is now time to open it up to your takes on what you saw this weekend. It's the fan email segment. Got a couple of our regulars in here. Cody, it is your time to shine, as I always like to say. We'll start with Rachel Fleming. What does she have to say?
All right, thank you for your email, Rachel. Rachel says, another very interesting Grand Prix. Lando, gutting for him. Mercedes power unit goes. That really hurts. Lando was getting close to Oscar, and then this happens. It might decide everything. This is gutting. Ferrari had the day from hell. Both out due to crashes. Charles was a victim of Kimi's poor judgment again. There could have been an argument of maybe being in F1 season too soon. As for Hamilton, well, it could have happened to anyone, but it seems worse because it's him. What a moment for Hadjar, a podium in his 14th attempt. Another midfield team gets a podium this season. I didn't think I would see Racing Bulls getting a podium ahead of the second Red Bull. Please don't put Hadjar in that car. Alonso watch, more anger, more frustration, and yet more points. Not bad, but he was behind his teammate. And Perez watch returns next season. Good stuff. Sauber watch, painful watch, the slowest cars this weekend. And while at one point Gabriel was 10th, it wasn't really on, but they did finish ahead of Kimi. That was thanks to a 15-second penalty. Now, on to my favorite track, Monza. You have good taste, Rachel. Monza is certainly a classic of the classics, and very, very fun race to watch. It does seem like it's kind of one of those ones that you get wild results at, like Charles Leclerc winning it last year. So I'm looking forward to that one as well. Some of your other points here, it is kind of funny to me to see Alonso get really bent out of shape just because he is so passionate and he gets bent out of shape so often. I do really hope that he gets a car again next season to really show what he still has, because he seems like the immortal F1 driver. He just keeps getting older and he keeps staying really good.
But you see that ticking time bomb just gets a little bit closer to 0 hour. Like it keeps approaching midnight to where he's just going to go off. And like I think he was pissed about when he was stuck in a DRS train. He couldn't do anything. So they pitted him to get him out of the DRS train. And then the safety car came out. So it was like, 3 calamities all into one. But yet at the end of the day, not a bad finish considering, especially where he qualified, and not a bad day for the team.
Yeah, it was really funny hearing them come over the radio and be like, hey, what's the pace on these tires? I don't know. You keep fucking pitting me into traffic. I don't know what it's actually like. So, yes. But
that reminds me of the McLaren days. Hey, Fernando, how's the pace? I don't know. You tell me.
But I just take it as him being passionate.
It's very much what he is. Always has been.
Here, we did talk about how awful this was for Orlando. It could come down to the end of the season that this retirement made all the difference, but we'll just have to see. We do have to remember that, Oscar only scored 2 points at the first race of the season, and that could come down to making a difference too. So,
a lot of these things, I tend to think that over the course of a season, over the course of a 24 race season, a lot of these types of things will even out one way or another. Now, if this is the evening up for Australia, well, okay. I mean, I listen to a lot of people say, well, it could be 30-some points. Well, now it is. Well, if that's where all the luck kind of cancels each other out, okay, fine. What I can tell you it isn't. There's no master puppeteer trying to make things happen one way or another at McLaren. It is game on between the two of them. And if nothing else, I think it's probably going to cut, for at least a couple weekends, some of the tension that, you could just get the back of my neck was starting to, turn and twist or something, where it's like, now you don't have that for a while. If Lando can come back a little bit, that's great. And if not, Oscar is more, I've said this before, Oscar is going to be more than a deserving world champion if he manages to bring this home. So
yeah. Are you familiar with the phrase, if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bike?
Yeah.
You could what could have been this until you turn blue in the face, and it wouldn't make a difference. Especially when the season's this close, you can do that. I mean, I've seen so many what could have been for the 2021 season. What if Hamilton hadn't had his mess up at Azerbaijan? What if this or that happened? There's so many, and it's like, well, that's not how it happened. So we're just gonna have to see how it comes down to the end of the season. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting in here. What is your opinion on if Kimi Antonelli was putting the Mercedes a season too soon?
I mean, I thought at the beginning of the season, Toto Wolff was coming out looking like a genius, where it was like, well, we had this guy. He was definitely young, very raw. I still think he's very young and very raw, and I do think that this is the part of the year where you're going to see that lack of experience kind of show itself, and it really has, because we're right around the time where if he was in his F3 season, they have one race left. They have Monza, and then F3 goes away. And then F2 basically has Monza, and then they basically shelve it almost all the way to Abu Dhabi. And then they kind of wrap up their season. So the junior category formulas don't have the same travel. They don't have the same. They don't have triple. I mean, they may have a triple header or two when they're around Europe, but it's not as, not to say that that's not stressful, because it is on those guys too. But it's not the same level of stress that following the Formula One circus around is now. It kind of sucks that this kind of happened right after the break, where you would hope that he'd be a little bit more refreshed and maybe better to go. But I think he decided he was going to get racy. Mercedes decided to get racy. They could have simply just followed and stayed on the hard tire and probably came home 8th, and that probably would have been fine. they went for it a little bit more than most, and this time it got burned, and with the constructors kind of being, we're kind of seeing where everybody's going to kind of slot in there. I think you're going to see more of that. You're going to see more strategists saying, well, hey, let's roll the dice on this and let's see what happens. That's what I think kind of happened to Antonelli. Like, he came out on the tires, Leclerc covered him off, and after that, then it turned into they had the collision, and that stuff's happened. That's racing.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say that they put him in the Mercedes this season early. I mean, he did kind of rocket through the major junior categories, so it is a little crazy that he got into F1 so quickly, but he was at the beginning of the season showing very, very well. I think maybe he just, maybe this is just kind of a more consistent showing of just where he's at right now, and maybe he had things going his way a little better at the beginning of the season. Maybe there's some changes to the car that he hasn't come to grips with. But we do have to remember that he was making a pretty good recovery drive today and running it in the points. So it's not like he was having an awful day. It just made a little mistake, and that cost him. But I think he deserves to be in the Mercedes seat. If anything, the argument that you could be making is that his bad turn of form right now is having a very tangible effect on Mercedes' place in the Constructors' Championship, which could come down to a significant difference in prize money at the end of the season. I mean, George has been scoring the lion's share of the points lately, and with how close they are to Ferrari right now, could make the argument that had someone else with more experience who could perform better, more consistently, was in that second seat, that Mercedes would probably have a better lock on second place. But it goes back to what could have been.
Right,
I think
exactly.
He's definitely got the skill to be in F1. I think if anything, it's he's just gonna get used to the team that much more quickly. Even if he has a rough season this time, so many teams are going to be back to square one next year anyway, with the new power units and the new cars and everything, and he'll have this season under his belt, which will just make him that much more equipped for next year.
Yeah, it's going to be such a reset anyway. Like, everyone's going to have the big learning curve, and this is probably going to benefit Kimi Antonelli in the long run, because he will have learned how to be an F1 driver. I think you don't have. I don't think anybody comes up and is just ready for what this is. It's the same thing they tell baseball players when you may be dominant in the minor leagues. Well, the minor leagues have one deck. And then you get to the major leagues, and then there's two, and some stadiums have 3 decks worth of people looking at you. And that third deck messes with your head a little bit, and it can. I think we've seen each of these rookies bubble up and show well at different points. I mean, Kimi Antonelli is the same guy who took a sprint pole and had some really good results early. So, I mean, it kind of is what it is. This is what you're going to get with young, inexperienced drivers. Now, does it have a problem with the ladder system? Yeah, I think the ladder system's more than broken, and I think it's something that probably can and should be addressed at some point. But I don't know. I don't have a solution in how you necessarily make it better. But I don't think he was. I don't think he's done anything that I go, oh, that was just a flat out rookie mistake. He got racy, and he got burned for getting a little racy, and that can happen. It can happen to anybody.
Yep, I agree. Thank you again, Rachel, for your email. Our second one comes in from the Formula. This one is nice and short and sweet. Formula says, ugh, wow. I mean, I just can't even. So many ups and downs this weekend. Quite entertaining, though, and too bad the championship isn't as tight now. I pretty much echo all of those sentiments. It was a crazy weekend. So many people who had poor qualifying ended up finishing very well, and so many people who qualified well ended up tumbling out of the race in some capacity. I am disappointed that the championship isn't as close now, because let's be real. It's been a 2-horse race here for a while, pretty much since after the first few rounds of the championship became clear. McLaren was dominant, and that they were going to continue to be dominant even after the flexi wing thingy, and it's been between Oscar and Lando pretty much the entire time. I guess we've been fortunate that they are both so skilled that it has been this close for the whole season. It's not like a lot of the Lewis Hamilton years where Valtteri Bottas would put up a fight for maybe a little while, and then Hamilton would pretty much just put the hammer down. But
literally and figuratively, in both ways.
But something like this, you can't fault Lando for it. It literally was outside of his control. Yeah, he was going to finish second. He would have only been 16 points out. We talked about how something like this could just as easily happen to Oscar. But it does take away some of the immediate excitement, because now you need something unfortunate to happen to Oscar, or a really consistent, strong run of form from Lando to close that gap back up, because these guys are going to be finishing 1-2 more often than not for the rest of the season. And that means, with the gap at this point, it's going to take 4 wins and 4 seconds, 4 wins for Lando and 4 seconds from Oscar for Lando to close that gap. That's not impossible, but it does mean that if Lando wants to get back into immediate contention, he's either got to turn up the wick or he's got to have some luck turn for him.
Yeah, and he's going to have to win in places that I think Oscar's historically been a lot better. We came into this weekend saying, well, Oscar really hadn't gone well here. Well, until you show me. Well, guess what? He showed us. He not only stepped up in qualifying, but was dominant in the race and never really looked like he was in any trouble, other than if the same problem that happened to Lando had maybe happened to Oscar's car. That was about the only real tension he had throughout all of this. Lando's going to have to do the same thing now. He's going to have to go into places that Oscar's better at. Oscar was better in Monza last year, no doubt about it. Monza's a place that Lando can have some good, when he's had good results, he's always been kind of outshone by his teammate. He had a best career second, and that was the year Carlos Sainz won. And then weird things always happen in Monza to Lando. It's kind of one of those weird kind of bogey things, but he's going to have to bring it, and he's going to have to bring it now. Otherwise, it is going to get out of hand quickly. It's got the potential. We're kind of at a crossroad. Where are we? Are we getting to maybe get a little closer? Or does the gap open up? And if the gap opens up, I don't see it. If there's another catastrophic failure or epic fail, or however you want to call it, on the Lando side, I don't think the math works out where he's going to be able to come back at it. It's going to take either Oscar having an off weekend where maybe he finishes 4th or 5th, and I don't know how that necessarily happens without like an incident, just given the pace of the car, or it's going to take something more catastrophic, like if the DNF thing evens itself out, or we get another crazy wet race, and then who knows what's going to happen. So, but again, Lando's still closer to Oscar than he was at any point in the whole Max thing last year. And we were talking in Brazil like, oh my God, the championship's on. That was when it was close to 50 points. It's less than that here. So
less than that with more races.
Yeah, it's more reasonable math. It's not easy math, but it's more reasonable math at this point.
Great.
All right, so we will move into our awards, and we shall start with the rubbish. Cody, what you got here?
All right, my rubbish award is going to go to Kimi Antonelli. And this is, of course, right after I've gone through saying, oh, yeah, he totally deserves to be in that Mercedes seat.
Just not this weekend.
Yeah. I do think, though, that was really kind of something of a rookie mistake from him. He tried to make a move that wasn't really ever going to happen. Probably should have just, tried to wait just a tiny bit longer. Instead, he pushed it just a little too hard, and that ended up ruining his race and Charles Leclerc's race, which just really added on to the Ferrari pain. So hopefully that pain goes away in time for Monza. But yeah, a bit of a rough one from Kimi, and it's been a string of rough ones lately.
Yeah, tough go. I was going to say maybe I even thought about putting Lewis Hamilton here, and that when would I ever say that in this award? But
Those
I'm
be
not going to
fighting
do
words.
that. Yeah, I know. I'm not going to do that. But I am going to say whatever part broke on Lando's car, that's the thing that made me the most pissed off this weekend. So that's what I'm going to blame. I'm sure it's some innocuous little tiny thing that just decided to finally fail. And I am confident that the team is going to get to the bottom of it and they're going to do their best to try to fix it. That's no that's a given. Like it was also telling that it wasn't like the normal McLaren happy celebration. It was kind of like, well, we got some work to do, and so they're gonna go do it. And, it's been you brought the stat. It was like 5 years since there was a real McLaren reliability thing that where an engine went bang. If it's 5 more years, and that's a hell of a thing, especially with the rules change next year. But yeah, but the thing that made me mad, whatever part broke on Lando's car, that was annoying as hell. But anyway. All right, we'll move into our analysis paralysis. I think we have consensus here. I like this one. Cody, what you got?
Analysis paralysis is going to go to the FIA's handling of penalties this weekend. We did see, and already talk about the whole Carlos Sainz penalty that should never have been a penalty and definitely should not have been a penalty on Carlos Sainz. So we kind of beat that horse. But the other one that we didn't really talk about was there was a move that Charles Leclerc made on George Russell during the race. A pretty crazy cool move, in my opinion. But it was a little unclear if he made the pass while he was off the track or if George Russell kind of forced him off the track. And it was, kind of like in the middle of the race when that happened. And then they said, "Oh, we're gonna handle this one after the race." And I was like, "Why? You're not really doing anything else right now. Like, there's not like there's a whole lot of other incidents that you got to go through at this moment. Like, why can't you just look at it now?"
What do you think other guy is going to say that's going to be the deciding case? You have the data, like those types of things. I like the fact that we were getting to the trend of we're adjudicating that in the race. It is what it is, and we're done talking about it, so that as a consumer of the race, if you go to the race and you see somebody finish in a certain position, and maybe they get demoted because they have time penalties, that's fine. But when you walk out of the gates what the result should be, unless there's some sort of post race technical thing that happens. Not to say that those things don't happen, but we've seen that they do. But when you decide to take an on-track incident and then say, well, let's go talk to the drivers after the race, you've committed to a 3-hour clicking of the Twitter over and over again to try to figure out what the hell the final result is. And as a fan, that's annoying as hell. We don't like doing that. Like, I understand if there's, like I said, if it's a Joe Bauer, skid plank issue or a technical issue that has to get referred to the stewards, fine. But when it's on track stuff, you have to make that determination. You have more than enough time to be sitting there figuring that stuff out. And if not, like the only time I think that's acceptable is if the incident is after a certain lap where, okay, we don't physically have the time to do it, because this incident happened at the end, but we don't necessarily need to hear from the drivers because they already told you what they thought about it on the radios. Like, What do you think George Russell's going to say that he didn't say on the radio? What did you think Charles Leclerc was going to say that he didn't say on the radio? So again, I'm with you here. Same award for me. And still, I still do not understand where Carlos Sainz did anything wrong other than tap the back of Liam Lawson accidentally. And that's 10 seconds and a two points on his license, apparently. Ouch. Harsh. Wow.
Yeah. And those 2 points are on there for a year, so he's going to be frustrated about that one for a while.
Yeesh. All right, so we'll move on to our dark horse of the day. Interesting you went to... Okay, I see kind of where you're going with this. I'm going with Isaac Hadjar, first podium, and he celebrates it by totally destroying his trophy, which will now have to get... The appropriate Formula One response is to get the super, super, super glue that they use on the floor of the car when, the car gets ran over or something, with the gravel in it. But, yeah, good for Isaac Hadjar. Great result. And good all weekend. That's on merit. That wasn't luck. That was on merit.
Yes, definitely an awesome performance from Isaac Hedjar, and I will give him his due diligence here in just a moment. However, if we're going off of race results based on where they qualified, my dark horse is going to go to Ollie Behrman for sure, because he had an excellent recovery from qualifying 19th, making his way all the way up to 6th place for a pretty good haul of points for Haas. Definitely did not see that one coming, so that is literally the definition of a dark horse, in my opinion.
Yeah, good job for Haas. Important points, even if it doesn't help them this weekend, could definitely set the stage for some better stuff for them in the weeks to come, for sure. All right, driver of the day. I'll go first with this one. I'm going to give it to Oscar Piastri because, again, the narrative was this was one of those Lando's backyard races. Here, Singapore, a couple others. And Oscar's gone in and has done this at a few places. Imola specifically, he did it. And, like I said, he does it here. Maybe we'll see if Oscar wins in Singapore. You definitely know that's, where what we're seeing is where we thought Lando would be the more dominant driver. Oscar's been right there, and if not, right on Lando's rear end the whole time. And even in Austria, which is a Lando specialty track, he did win that race, but it was not easy by any stretch. So this is the thing you have to do to win a world championship. So if he's doing it and he's got maybe, I'm not even saying one hand on the trophy. He's got he's reaching for the trophy at this point. He hasn't touched it, but he's extended the arm. Let's put it that way. Yeah, way to go, Oscar Piastri. Ready to step up this weekend. And throughout the practices, I'm like, oh, this is going exactly according to plan. And then the race happened.
Yes, it is definitely hard to argue a driver who's achieved a Grand Chelem does not get driver of the day. However, I am going to give the driver of the day not to Oscar Piastri, but to Isaac Hadjar, because certainly Oscar Piastri had a great performance, and we've come to expect these performances from him each and every weekend. But I do think Isaac Hadjar really stepped up to another level this weekend. He took his consistently midfield car, put it into contention immediately by qualifying in 4th place. He managed to hold on to that 4th place through, skill on track throughout the entire race, and then got a little lucky and it turned into a podium for him. So I think Isaac Hadjar definitely is deserving of driver of the day as well.
Yep. I really can't argue that, and I think they are both deserving of the award this weekend. All right, so we will now talk predictions, and boy, did we punch this one. In our predictions game, there's 2 guaranteed points. One is the quality lap time and one is the race lap time. Why? Because we never wanted to shut each other out. And we almost damn near did that this weekend. Cody, you got one of those points. You got the fastest overall lap time. That was it. And we didn't see any smoke. I didn't see any orange smoke. So we didn't even get the stupid prop bet that we thought was just an easy point. But anyway, I actually got 2 of them. I got the fastest quality time, even though my quality lap time that was achieved in FP1, and I saw that and I went, oh dear, we're way, way, way too slow. And because Oscar Piastri ended up getting the fastest lap at the end, that's what tips it in my favor. So he is the fastest lap driver. So I win a scant 2-1. It feels like this our competition is going to go in the way of the championship. I've actually opened up a gap here. I'm now up 8-5 on the season. But I'm sure you will come back at me before this season is done. I have no doubt about that. All right. Well, that will do it for our Dutch GP review. Thank you again to all our contributors who helped make the show what it is. We love reacting to your fan emails. It's always great stuff. Rachel Fleming and I were kind of giving each other the there, patting each other on the back on Twitter earlier today. And I'm like, I'm trying to keep perspective here, but it's really hard at the minute. And I'm trying to be democratic about it. But yeah, sometimes this is racing. This is what happens. Sometimes it sucks. But anyway, the good news is if you're a Lando Norris fan or a Lewis Hamilton, well, maybe if you're not a Lewis Hamilton fan, maybe this is going to be one of those Lewis epic weekends where he's got the 5-place grid drop and it doesn't freaking matter. And he gets, uber inspired by, the home crowd at Monza, who will be rocking for sure.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be his first Ferrari drive in front of the True Blue Tifosi. That's got to be magical. So I'm sure that's going to give him a little extra pep in his step.
So we shall see what the Ferraris do. We'll see what the McLarens do, how to counter this, and what does Lando and what can Lando do to now eat back into the championship. But we will see what all happens with that. So we'll be back with a preview mid this next week. And then we'll be back for the Monza weekend. It's always a great weekend. We've got full service F2 and F3. F3 wrapping up their championship. F2 moving forward with their championship as well. So lots of good racing on offer as we are now back and up and running in the second half of the season. So for Cody, it's been Andy. As always, folks, take care of yourselves and may all your laps be fast.